This year, the US will be in full election mode. It's a big deal that is about to shake up the economy. What can we expect? To get the full picture, we'll look at potential changes in employment, the stock market, real estate, taxes, and the overall economy. First off, the labor market. What's coming in the near future? One of the biggest achievements of Bidenomics is dropping unemployment to 3.8%, a record low unseen in decades. But non-farm employment is on a downward trend. And non-farm employment is basically most of the ordinary job. It excludes military, nonprofit, farming, and a couple of other groups. Now we see fewer open jobs, and this is likely to keep up for the rest of 2024. The main reason for that is that most businesses are still coming back to normal after the pandemic. Many are cautious about expanding because they are not sure if the crisis is coming. So the number of new jobs doesn't grow, but it is still pretty high. And there's another great thing. After big layoffs at Twitter, Amazon, Meta, and other tech giants, overall job cuts are decreasing. Many companies seem to find that balance between their staff numbers, costs, and profits. The optimisms also spread to wages in 2024. Experts predicted an average increase of 4% this coming year. And who's popping up the champagne with the biggest raise? Energy sector workers, with a projected 4.5% hike, and engineers with a 4.4% wage growth. Because you're watching our channel, chances are you are not just about that salary life. So what's 2024 got for investors? What's in store for the markets in this election year? Historically, stocks and bond markets don't feel too good in the year before a presidential election. So you can expect things to cool off a bit. Usually, stock returns about 8.5%, but in the election years, they tend to go down, and the average returns drop below 6%. But after the elections is when the stock market tends to grow. And this is not me who's saying that. That statement comes from the analysts who studied the American economy for the last 90 years. And what's interesting is that they found no clear link between which party wins and market performance. It's not about the party, but the event itself. When the leadership changes, the stocks go up. Usually, when a new government comes, the market gains an average of 5%. So almost half of investors believe the 2024 elections will impact portfolios more than the market in general. But why does the stock market slow down during elections? One word: uncertainty. Elections often means that a new leader will choose a new economic course, and the investors get unsure about the future. And because of that, they don't take too much risk. If a candidate looks solid, the market might react positively. But if investors have no clear expectations, the market response might not be so great until the elections are over. It's clear with stocks. But what about real estate? If you're thinking about buying a home during the election season, meaning this year, there will be an impact as well. Housing prices have been climbing steadily, but sometimes there's a notable hike in election years. Look at this example. These are home prices in Sacramento County. Since 2000, home values have risen each election year, with the exception of 2008 because of the crisis, which is kind of obvious. And another usual trend is that the mortgage rates often increase after the elections. But predicting this stuff is tricky. Economists can only analyze past trends and make guesses for the present and possibly the future. Another thing we'll definitely hear during the presidential campaigns is the subject around taxes. We always hear the president signing this and that bill, and those are billions, if not trillions of dollars. But who finances all that? Taxpayers. Everyone from me and you to Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and every Republican and a Democrat. But each president sees taxes differently. Biden's team is pushing for higher taxes on the wealthy and big corporations. They try to ease the load for those with lower and average income. This is quite a contrast to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act under Trump in 2017. That one favored big businesses and the super rich, cutting their corporate taxes. Biden's new tax law is supposed to shake things up in 2024. It's targeting the super rich, and supposedly it can cut their profits by over 16%, while lower income earners can see a boost of more than 3% thanks to reduced taxes. But here's the twist. Higher taxes mean more pressure on businesses. If we add last year's inflation and the Fed's interest rate hikes, we can see more layoffs when the tax pressure is too big to handle. So what's the tax outcome in 2024 and after? Depends on who wins the election. 38% of Americans believe our country's biggest problem is the economy, and 14% of them blame inflation. I feel like the biggest issue we're facing now is the uncertainty, and it didn't start today. When did it start then? Well, we could go back to the Fed's creation in 1912, or the 2008 crisis when the age of cheap money began. But instead of going that far, let's go back to 2020 when COVID-19 started. So, it's the beginning of 2020. The coronavirus is spreading around the world. It reaches the US, and there we go. Quarantine restrictions, total lockdown, and a paralyzed economy. Imports and exports slowed down. Restaurants and offices closed. People were stuck at home. Not only the economy, but the whole world stopped. And because of that, most companies suffered huge losses and laid off their employees. And even though many discovered the perks of remote work, there was a major issue: unemployment. It reached almost 15% at the time. The inflation, though, was still very low, at just over 1%. Now, let's fast forward to the middle of 2021. Quarantine restrictions are slowly being lifted. And what happens? Businesses get excited and start hiring. The number of open positions grows, and the unemployment falls to 6%. But inflation rises to 5%. Why? It's pretty simple. Imagine if I stay home without work and a stable income. The first logical thing I will do will be cutting my expenses. And that's what most of us did during the quarantine, because we didn't know what was going to happen. As a result, the demand for goods and services dropped. But when Americans got back to work, they started earning again. And now they could spend more, whether on gas to get to work, their lunches, or any other everyday expenses. But here's the twist. When the demand went up, prices increased too. Another reason for higher demand was that some people earn more when working remotely. Did you know that remote workers earn, on average, almost $9,000 more per year than those in the office? How's that possible? The main reason is that those working from home tend to have several jobs. In 2022, nearly 80% of remote employees had at least 2 jobs. That's how 34% of them managed to earn over $100,000 yearly. But the booming labor market and low unemployment were not the only reasons for higher demand. 2 other things that led to it were the cheap money with near zero interest rates and the government stimulus of over $5 trillion. As a result, we got an overheated economy because there was too much money out there. That was also why we saw so many companies getting sky-high valuations, which were not realistic, by the way. So it was just a matter of time for inflation to get out of control. So the big question is, how do we slow down this train? The standard recipe is to cut people's earning and boost unemployment. This could work because lower income and lower demand can stabilize the situation. But who can make this happen? And how? Here is when the Federal Reserve steps in. And their main instrument is adjusting interest rates. So, to cool the economy down, they raise interest rates. This means that loans get more expensive, not only for us, but also for businesses. And what do businesses do in response? They start optimizing their expenses. This often leads to salary cuts and layoffs. And even if they don't fire people, they certainly are not in a rush to hire. But the main challenge for the Fed is to balance their policies, because they're also responsible for ensuring maximum employment. Although in reality, the maximum shouldn't be reached if we want stability and low inflation. So they have to play around with the rates and make them tight enough, but not too tight. Even though the media tries to scare us with a recession like it is some kind of a monster. In reality, a recession is when the GDP, meaning all the goods and services produced, declines for 2 consecutive quarters. You heard that right. I said decline. I didn't say destroy. Picture this. You're jogging and you get out of breath. What do? You slow down to catch your breath. But then you pick up the pace again and keep running at a new speed. You don't stop and throw the towel. That's exactly what the economy does in a recession. It slows down, it adjusts, but keeps going. Now, let me bring you back to the brighter side of things. Since the Great Depression, the US has seen 14 recessions. The average one lasted 10 months and usually led to a 2.5% drop in GDP and 4 million job losses. But when the recession is over, we usually see a very big economic bounce with up to 69 months of growth, a 25% GDP jump, and 12 million new jobs. And every recession tends to ease the inflation, normalize prices, create new businesses, and make existing companies stronger. Economists actually believe we can get that soft landing and even hit that 2% inflation target by 2025. Of course, not all promises get the fast track. Many are still a work in progress. Overall, the near future looks like a bit of an economic slowdown, but that's normal. The economy is all about cycles. For that soft landing out of high inflation to happen, we need to ease out slowly. And even though alarming messages are going around, the real numbers are not so bad for our economy. So whether it's an election year or not, there's no need for panic. What do you think about this election year? Let me know down in the comments and share this video with friends and family to help them be ready. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.